And welcome back to Moving Conversations. I'm Brian Ritchie. Joining me as always is Nora St. John. Good morning, Nora. How's your day going?
Quite well. It's been a busy day already, but life's looking good. How about you?
Doing good, doing good. Yeah, when we record this, it's pretty early in the morning for Nora. So, it's well, you get to start the day off doing this, and it seems like you've already had a whole lot of stuff go on. So your day started with a bang.
It did. It did. A little early meeting about advanced mood principles, and then everything gets a little crazy after that.
Nice, nice. All right. Well, today I thought what would be a good topic, we haven't spoken on this yet, would be resiliency. Uh, all too often we find that as we age, especially with our clients, they want to train like they did when they were 25 again. I'm not going to lump all men into this category, but especially a lot of men. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Before we do that, I want to remind everybody, please do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Uh, and make sure you subscribe so that this is downloaded into your podcast, whether it be Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Apple Music. Do that every Tuesday morning. It'll be there ready for you when you head to work so you can listen to us and keep informed. And yeah, and if you want to get in touch with us, you can just hit us up at our email, which is movingconvos@gmail.com. We've been getting a few emails uh, more regularly, which is also always nice. So do us a favor and send it in any of your requests. If you have a topic, we covered scoliosis a couple weeks ago, and that was a hot one that people were asking about on the emails. So believe me, if you ask for it, we will do our best to, if we don't understand it, or if it's something that we don't feel comfortable talking about in detail ourselves, we'll bring someone in who we have contacts with that can speak at length, and we'll bring in an authority. So, and that's what we did with scoliosis. And so please hit us up on the email. All right, that's behind us, that's beside us. So now let us get on with resiliency.
So, resiliency. This is one of those topics that has really, I hear a lot about it lately in
Mhm.
all aspects, actually, not just in the fitness aspect, but in many different aspects.
Mhm.
Kind of, making your body bulletproof is sometimes kind of what I hear, making your body wear proof. Like there are lots of different ways that this is expressed.
Yep. Yep.
And certainly, one of the things that I really think about it is, again, now that I'm, in my 60s, I want to have a body that works for a long time. And it's a
Yeah.
very different goal than when I was in my 20s or my 30s or my 40s, or even my 50s for that matter. And
Mhm.
to do that, I've got to look at a lot of elements of what I'm doing, finding ways that are sustainable. Like I can find a workout that I can do without causing trouble or headache or hassle or injuries for a long period of time, and it will slowly build me up and keep me functioning as long as possible. For me, that's
Yep.
kind of my current definition of resiliency. What's yours?
Well, resiliency in general is all to me is the ability to snap back after stress. So
Aha.
when you're looking
Yeah.
at what we do in fitness and in Pilates, we're technically stressing out the body. We're taking
Right.
it to a level, if you're training hard enough, you're taking it to a level that's beyond rest, and
Mhm.
beyond, I'm going to say, taking a walk. So I have a
Yeah,
lot of clients that
neutral.
come in and, yeah, that come in and say, oh, yeah, I exercise 5 days a week. And I say, well, what do you do? Well, I go for a 2 mile walk. It's like, well, that's great. Awesome. However, that's not that stressful to your heart and to your body for the most
Yeah.
part, for most people. For some people it is, but for the most part. And to do real exercise, you should do something that's going to stress you a little bit. That way your body takes in that stress and says, "Hey, guess what? I got to build up. I got to build some strength. I got to build endurance because they may ask me to do this again and I want to be ready for it." And that's how we build cardiovascular fitness. That's how we build, strength. That's how we build hypertrophy, all of that, at a very basic level of physiology. It's our body's way of snapping back. But as I have discovered, as we've aged, my body does not snap back as well as it used uh, to say the least. I remember way back when, for some reason, this hit me when I was weightlifting, and I said, you know what? I don't have to lift 500 pounds. If I can just make the weight feel heavier and make the resistance feel like it's more, it actually will be the same as if I'm lifting more weight, and in my mind was keeping my body a little bit safer. So, you slow down your repetitions. You can do other ways to increase the intensity without necessarily increasing a lot of weight. So I was trying to make the exercise as hard as possible, make it as difficult as possible, or as inefficient as possible so I could
Mm,
maximize my gains.
mhm.
And I'm finding that as I'm aging, I'm trying to make my exercises and my body's movements as efficient as possible. So I've really turned that around. And I'm trying to create more efficiency so that I can move through life easier, so I can be better at what I'm doing. And I find that that was the big switch for me. So, if I am lifting the same amount of weight, I want it to be as effortless as possible. I don't want to be grunting and making it seem like it's hard. I want it to feel like this is not a problem. My body's got this. And hopefully, without straining it to the point where I'm not going to be able to snap back by my next workout.
I, I studied a lot of martial arts over the years, and I've studied with a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong masters. And a lot of
Mhm.
the Tai Chi and Qigong teachers are old, like 80 and 90. And
Yeah.
one of the things they talk about, and a lot of the martial artists that I've worked with, because I've worked with martial artists from 20 to 80, so all the way along that whole pathway. And what they really talk about is exactly that, that when you're young, like you're training hard, right? You're trying to push things and really kind of damage, create micro damage along the way that
Right.
you then
Exactly.
recover from. And what all of my Tai Chi and Qigong teachers say is it's like it's not about that anymore. It is exactly about how much can I do without that creating that level of stress or dysfunction or damage to the body? Like, how can I really nourish the body, build up the energy, build up the ability of the body to do things without quite so much stress? So it is a very different process at this point.
Yeah, and it's very difficult, as I said earlier, a lot of my men, when they come in and they haven't been training, they're in their 50s and they haven't lifted a weight since they were in their 20s in college or whenever, and they automatically assume that they're going to be lifting hard and heavy and all of this, and it's really trying to get their mindset around the fact that, no, we wanna be gentler to the body. We can still create a little bit of micro damage because obviously they're sore the next day. So we've done some things that are creating that, but we're doing it in a very safe way. And we're also changing the way we're looking at the body. So we are trying to create better movement patterns. We are trying to enhance movement rather than, be just stuck under a bench press or a squat bar or something like that. We want to create, proper movement patterns and train
Right.
them more through activities of daily life, more functional, all of that sort of thing.
And more full bodied, right? Because a lot of
Oh, yeah.
times we're no longer focusing on one muscle group at a time. We want the whole system to work as a unit and be able to tolerate whatever loads or activities we're doing and whatever sports we want to participate in. But
Yep.
again, from that whole body perspective. So it's a lot more about functional movement, daily movement, multiplanar movement, all those pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of it is just mindset. It is changing
Mhm.
how we see the body and understanding that our tissues are different at 50 or 60 than they are at 20 or 30.
Mhm.
Our fascial suit literally is more dehydrated. It's a little bit
Mhm.
more fibrous. It's a little bit, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know if anybody has grabbed one of those TheraBands that's been sitting around for a long time, but you
Right.
grab it and you suddenly pull it and you can tell this thing's going to break. This thing is
Yep.
not as elastic as it once was. And I had a client do that just the other day. She grabbed it and she yanked it really hard. And I was like, wait. And it immediately snapped. Of course, it was dry and
Yeah.
brittle. And as she did that, I was saying that's kind of how our bodies are as we get a little older,
There's
little drier,
collagen.
little more,
Collagen as we age.
yeah, we could use a little extra collagen. We could use a little extra elastin uh, in our system. But I find that we need to do things like more of an extended warm up. We need to get our bodies moving more. We
Mhm.
need to make sure that I was talking to a client yesterday who was a little older than I am. He was in his late 50s. And, he's a golfer and he basically would get out of the car and just go immediately and hit balls. And I'm like, okay,
Right.
well, you've got, your thoracic is rock solid. It is not moving. You're not doing anything
Mm.
through there. I mean, even breathing, he has no rib cage movement, no dynamic. He
Wow.
hinges from his TL junction only. So, I
Oh
mean,
boy.
I'm looking at these things and I'm like, okay, we need to get your body to be more supple. And I love
Yes.
using that word because people get that.
Yes.
And I say, you need to be a little bit more supple so your body moves more freely. I said, don't worry about power. If you're moving well, you're going to have greater range of motion. You're going to be able to have, more strength and more power through the range of motion just because you're able to go back an extra 5 or 10 degrees if that's even what your spine allows. And by the end of the session, and literally all we did was mobility and moving his thoracic the whole session. And he said, I haven't felt this good in years. And I said, well, we're training the body a little differently now.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
we're
Yep.
taking that fascia, and I tried to explain that, it's kind of like, I mean, you've talked about in the moving fascia series, I say fascia for when you're older is like frozen butter. It's hard.
Yes.
It's not going to
Yes.
move very well. You have
Yep.
to get it to, first of all, become soft and then be able to melt and to get that solubility going so that the body wants to move and wants to be free. But at the beginning, oh, it's not going to move that very well at all.
Right. Right, right, right. That's always the image I love is that the glycosaminoglycans, that interstitial fluid inside your fascia can go from kind of a gel state to a liquid state. And we're really trying to get it to go to a liquid state because that's when it
Yep.
lubricates things. And any of you who've ever gotten up in the morning and had that feeling like like everything's like you need the oil can from Wizard of Oz, right? Everything's creaky. That's because those glycosaminoglycans haven't transformed from hard butter to soft butter and to oil to really make yourself move.
Yeah. Yeah. So I always find that where I start with almost all of my clients when they're a little bit older or when they're starting, in my mind, even it all comes down to goals and objectives because if I have a high level athlete, even in their 30s or moving into their 40s, that they're very high level, they may need to train a lot harder and I may need to, be a little bit more goal oriented with them. But if I'm getting a client that's just normal, average, average Joe or Jane who wants to have better health, better strength, better cardiovascular fitness, I always think about, okay, I want to prolong their activity longer in life, reduce the risk of injuries, and see how we can do that through exercise. And one of the first things I try and do is say, okay, what joints of theirs are moving and what aren't? Taking a look at
Hmm.
that first, trying to
Yep.
figure out, okay, are the joints that we talked about this last week, are the joints that we want to be stable, that we want to train for stability, are they fairly stable? Are the ones that are supposed to be moving mobile enough to get them so that they have good quality of movement? It does come down to good movement.
And integrated movement. So again, it's not just
Yes.
like a bicep curl, it's not just bending the elbow. It's if I'm trying to pull something towards me, I lean over,
Yeah,
I pick it up, I bend, and what am I doing with my back and my hips and everything else, and how all that
absolutely.
works
Yeah.
together. And one of the things that I also want to say, if we're talking about people at this age group, is sometimes you have issues in an area. You have a knee problem, you have a
Oh, yeah.
back problem, you have a shoulder problem, something, and so there's certainly getting the movement pattern as good as possible given that
Mhm.
client's limitations. And then it's
Yes.
also, how do I compensate for that limitation? Do I need to have something else move more? Do I have to make something else move less? Like really understanding how that movement needs to integrate through all those joints to minimize the stress on any one area.
Yeah. It's interesting because oftentimes we talk about getting rid of our compensations, but that's that's the truth. Sometimes it's about creating compensations so that they can have better movement and better integrated movement, better three-dimensional movement because some people just can't. I literally had a gentleman here this morning who has a lifting issue and has because he has a significant leg length discrepancy that's caused a curvature of the spine and it's about a quarter inch difference. Well, anything more than a quarter inch, and we're talking about serious functional deficit and whatnot. So we have to create some compensations to have him move as good as possible. So it's
Correct.
one of those things like,
Yep.
oh, okay, we have to work on compensation for certain things while eliminating other compensations that are actually causing pain and discomfort. So it's a
Right.
balancing act in that sense.
And it's called management. Right, as we get older, it's like we start to manage things like, okay, well, I can sit for a long time in this chair, but not in this chair. Or when I'm
Yep.
driving for long distance, I need to get out every 20 minutes and wiggle around, or every 2 hours. I need to have a little, like all those things that, feel a little funny as we get older, but are also just managing things. Like, that if you do those things, and it can be movement, it can be exercise, it can be walking, it can be stretching, whatever it is, that then you can do what you want to do and you won't pay a price for it. Right. That's kind of what we're
Right.
really aiming for.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, so for those clients, I do want to start them off and see how their body moves in space and how it does move if it's integrated. Or is there a hitch in their giddy up? If when they try and rotate, is there an area that is blocked? They turn really well to the right and coming to the left, they sort of hit a wall. Looking for those type of things. Trying to figure out, okay, is that safe movement? Is it a bony prominence? Is something blocking that is not our scope of practice, or is it just tight musculature where we need to just create more freedom of movement? So looking at that is one area that I first want to start, is just seeing how they move in space.
And are the parts working together or not?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Then I start breaking down and thinking about exercises,
Mhm.
because when you're thinking about exercise, if you're looking for strength, you're going to choose certain exercise. If you're looking for endurance, you're going to look at others. And it's not that you have to sacrifice one or for the other, but you think about, okay, I always look for, as we get a little older, full range of motion, trying to create
Mhm.
a little bit larger ranges of motion as long as it's safe. And that comes down into that integrated movement. Because if I'm going to do a row, for instance, there's many ways to do it. I can do two-handed, where I'm just pulling back towards myself, and I'm going to be dictated by the handle I use, whether I use a band, whether I use, rubber resistance or cable or whatnot. And when you're doing it bilaterally, you're really going to limit that because you don't have any freedom of rotation, usually when you're doing it with both arms at the same time,
Mm.
when you're
Right.
doing it
Yep.
bilateral.
Yep.
But introducing a unilateral, and suddenly I can have a larger range of motion because I can add a little bit of rotation to the beginning. As I'm reaching forward, I can rotate my shoulders toward the target, toward the weight stack or wherever the band is attached to. And as I pull away from it, I can rotate the opposite shoulder toward it and my working shoulder away from it, and add a little bit of that rotation and maybe work on more rotation in that sense. So I can create a larger, more full range of motion and integrate other body parts and other things that need to work for stability. Because if I'm standing or sitting, it's going to be different. And just creating more of that integrated movement.
Which is where all of our environments, I mean, your environment in terms of personal training and mine in terms of Pilates
Hmm.
are wonderful. The other thing I want to add to that though is what I find with a lot of my really my older clients, we'll just stick with that. That seems to be our
Sure.
theme, is I really want to look at some I get back to very fundamental movement patterns with them.
Hmm.
Lifting, reaching, squatting, lunging, rotating, and I really just keep
Absolutely.
focusing on that. I'm not going for novelty. I'm not going for like crazy stand on a Bosu and stand on your head or whatever. I'm not going for that. I'm really going for how can I help them lift something up? Get their groceries out of the car, rotate this way, ride their bicycle if that's what they want to do. Like I really get very specific in terms of what I'm going to focus on for them, what exercises I'm going to choose. And then also, to your point, particularly for my women, I think I've got to focus a little more on strength. Like I may focus on
Hmm.
stability and that kind of things, but especially post menopause with collagen changes and sarcopenia and all that, like I just want to get some strength in there. So I'm going to maybe do a
Sure.
little heavier weight over time, build up to it, and
Hmm.
add weight into those integrated motions so that I'm also getting a little
Yep.
bit of strength building at the same time, right? I want to really
Yeah.
focus on both those pieces.
And that does come down to exercise selection, because a lot of times I will try and find functional movements,
Yeah,
functional exercises, because those are the ones that are really going to help our older clients. And let's face it, even a step up. Okay.
yeah,
Can I
yeah,
load my body, in a step up significantly enough that I'm going to be building strength? Absolutely. Because
yeah.
depending on what I'm holding, depending on how big of a weight vest I want to put on, or how dumbbell I want to put in my hand, or one hand to offset, or however I want to do it, I can create that and do a step up. And that's a very functional exercise. And it's a very functional exercise for clients who, lack that strength to get off the ground. One of the
Right.
things that I hear from my older clients is they can't get up off the ground very easily.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
I say, okay, that's an exercise that we practice and we
Yep.
practice a lot. Well, guess what? If I want to build strength, I'm going to have them start with step ups because it is that single legged pushing down and stabilizing as coming up. And I can load that. I can start with their body weight and begin to load it over time. And it's an easy way for me to do that. And it's very functional because guess what? Here in the East Coast, most houses, we got steps. We got to deal with that. And I dislike when I hear clients tell me, "Oh yeah, I think I'm gonna get one of those chairlift things for my stairs." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Why?" "Oh,
Yeah.
eventually I'm gonna need it and I don't want to put in an elevator." I'm thinking, "But you can walk stairs really well now. Keep
Right,
doing
keep
it."
working on that. Exactly, use it
Yeah,
eh, go down the ladder when you need to go down the ladder. Do
bingo.
not go down the ladder sooner than you need to in terms of
Yes.
function. And I know I think about, relatives of mine who kinda gave up early, like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I can't do that anymore. Oh, I can't do that anymore. Oh, I can't do that anymore." And then and what I find is then they get a more rapid deterioration of their skills. It's
Yep.
like, "Oh, I'm not comfortable walking," or I can't walk as far as I used to, so I'm not gonna walk at all." Right? All
Yep.
those moments, it's like, for me, resiliency is also just about fighting a bit and maintaining a bit
Oh,
and
yeah.
continuing to do stuff, even when it maybe isn't the main thing you wanna do because you need to. Like, that's how you keep
Mhm.
function is you keep moving. Move it or lose it is a real thing.
Absolutely. And we've talked about sarcopenia in the past, loss of muscle mass and loss of muscle strength. And it happens as we get older, but there's also a neurologic and a motor component to that as well when
Right.
clients stop doing something on a regular basis. I had a client, older gentleman, who tripped going up the stairs. It scared him. He freaked out. He stopped walking. He stopped doing anything for a while. And this is a guy who did not need a walker, did not need a cane. He was totally fine walking around. He was a little slow. He was 80, moving a little slow, but still was able to move. And suddenly he couldn't walk anymore. He literally stopped for
Mm,
about six
yeah.
weeks
Yeah,
because he was
long enough.
scared. And after that, he never got off his walker.
Mm.
And I eventually got him onto a walker, but then it was sort of a wow, it happened so quickly. And I've seen people who, stop driving and all of a sudden, they're not turning their head in the car anymore. They're not getting in and out of the car. They're
Right.
not squatting deep
Right.
enough.
Yep.
Small things on a regular basis. And now they start losing the ability over time or
Yep.
lose the ability to do it comfortably.
Right. So again, keeping yourself moving. And sometimes that's I mean, these are all those things they talk about. Keep the stairs. If you got stairs in your house or stairs at your
Yeah.
office, walk the stairs. Don't take the elevator. I mean, not for 20 floors, but for a floor or
Mhm.
two. Park farther away from the door. So you've got to
Yep.
actually walk to your desk if you're still in a desk job. Get up and walk around the house. Like all those little dumb things. But all those are critical at a basic functional level.
100%. And something else that I've said this before and I'll reiterate here, when something happens, and a lot of our clients over the age of 40 or 50 are going to have a surgery probably of some kind, some way, shape, or form, or they're going to need physical therapy or whatever, because we do get injured. Take it seriously. You often get a chance, especially after surgery, to rehab once correctly. And after that, you're going to be fighting with it and you're going to be taking 2, 3, 4 times as long as it would have if you had just done it properly the first time. So make sure you take it seriously because that's what's going to get you back to fully functional as quickly as possible. So you can return to doing stairs after a knee replacement, for instance, and not say, well, I guess I'm going to go up one leg at a time from now on forever.
And
And
we
it's
and
like,
we
no, you don't need to.
no, and we say this a lot, but just to reiterate it here, um, if an area is immobilized, it takes at least, and this is for like a younger, healthier body, at least 3 times as long as it was immobilized to return to the same level of strength.
Yeah.
And there was a study, which I don't have the quotes for, so sorry about that. But they did a study with these young men where they basically were in college. It was a group of college men, and they put them to bed for 3 weeks as if they were rehabilitating from a major surgery or something like that. And then they checked and saw how long it took them to regain the functional fitness level they had before they put them to bed for 3 weeks. Basically, it took them a minimum of 3 months.
Yeah.
A minimum of 3 months. So basically, a month, 4 weeks for every week that they were down. Apparently, they took the same group again in their 50s and did the same thing, put them to bed for 3 weeks. Many of them never returned to their previous level of fitness. And that's
That's
at
scary.
50. And that's at
Yeah.
50. So, and I think about again relatives who've had pretty major health issues like kidney issues or congestive heart failure, that kind of thing. And they're in bed for a period of time and they're sick
Mhm.
and there's a lot of limitations going on. And it's kind of like if heaven forbid you should have that experience of having to be incapacitated for a period of time or immobilized for a period of time, just know that you have got to work if you're going to return to where you were. And some of that is
Yeah.
mental toughness. Like, I'm going to keep working at this to get there. Because I've also had clients who have been in a situation like that, lost a lot of strength and muscle mass, and they've just worked at it. And it's been slow and frustrating, but they've gotten
Mhm.
there. It may have taken them a year, it may have taken them a year and a half, but they've really worked at it, and then they're able to return to what they're used to do and use what they used to love to do, and they're happy and they're healthy and they feel good. So it's
Yeah.
also a little bit of just persistence, resilience, persistence. Those go
Yeah.
together.
What absolutely, absolutely. And we're thinking about doing those functional exercises. I mean, let's sort of explain what those could be. Something as simple as a squat,
Yep.
pushing,
Yep.
pulling,
Yep.
walking. I
Yep.
love I once heard a definition, someone said, "Okay, give me a definition of a lunge." And nobody in the group could, including myself. I was like, "Well, I can describe it. I can do a lot of things, but a clear, easy definition." It was hard. It said, "Basically, it's walking with elevation change."
Right.
I was
Nice.
like,
I like
"That's a
that.
great way to look at that. I'd never thought of that
Yeah.
before."
Yeah.
But it's true. So I love doing things, even a mini lunge,
Hmm.
because it's something that will challenge the person, and almost everybody can do it. So
Hmm.
thinking of those exercises, you've seen me in some of my, classes. I love this standing up and putting it back down again,
Yeah.
because we do that constantly.
Yep.
Throughout the day, we have to lift something up. I mean, we just went to Home Depot and bought a bunch of mulch and dirt and things like that, and guess what? We had to move it around the yard. So what does it involve? You pick it up, you carry it over here, you put it back down again.
Exactly.
And that's functional.
Hmm.
And I will actually do that for my clients. I will put out different weights and different things, sand bells and kettlebells and things, and say, okay, we're going to carry all of these things over there. You're going to pick it up, carry it over there, put it down, come back, pick up the next thing, and then bring them all back.
Love it.
And it's a fun activity. A lot of times they enjoy it because I'll time them. I'll say, okay, we're going to go over that way. And I won't let them know I'm timing them. I'll just sort of
Uh-huh.
glance at my watch and be like, okay, and I'll say, okay, it took you a minute and 45 seconds. And they'll be like, I didn't know you were timing me. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
uh-huh. Now let's bring them all back and let's see how, and usually they'll almost every one of them to a person 2/3 the time because now they're focused.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now
Nice.
they're focused on it. So it's a
Yep.
way to get them engaged a little bit more and they see how good it is for them.
Yep.
Also for function, I love to take a look at what do they do regularly.
Yeah.
Because I have gardeners. I have
Yep.
people who play pickleball. I have cyclists,
Yep.
like Al. I mean, people, and I'm going to take a look at that and say, okay, you're going to be in these positions. So now I need to train you so you can maintain those positions for a longer
Mhm.
period of time because
Mhm.
you're going to be doing it anyway. So guess what? I want to make sure you're strong enough to do it
Or counterbalance it.
or
Like, again, I
counterbalance
work
it.
with I work with I work with a lot of cyclists because Ken bounce body cyclist, and so is Al. And it's kind of like, okay, so you're in this position where you're in deep hip flexion, you're a little bit of spinal flexion, and you're not moving your torso pretty much at all, right?
Yep.
And then I look and say, okay, you've lost your ability to rotate or to side bend, which I know is going to cause, and one of my clients regularly, their back kind of goes out regularly, and it's because they're so stiff. It's like, okay, so we're going to just add rotation into every single session we do, some lateral
Yeah.
flexion, and you're going to take those home, right? You're going to just like do
Mhm.
those, just simple, easy rotation every day.
Yes.
Because that's also that counterbalance, right? Like make sure they can do the activity they want to do because we do some of that work as well, but also what do they need to counterbalance whatever their activity
Yep.
is? Yeah.
I love that, and I do that with a lot of my golfers, is I'll tell them
Yeah.
they have to swing the opposite way because
Yep.
they get so one-sided.
Yep.
Pickleball, same thing,
Yep.
if they say, "Oh, yeah, I'm good at my forehand, my backhand's terrible," I say, "Well, guess what? You're only rotating one direction probably 3/4 of the time. So
Yeah.
guess what we're gonna practice? We're going to rotate the other way."
Exactly.
Taking a look and seeing where their limitation may be in that activity, but also taking a look and picking out the correct exercise because if
Mhm.
they are doing something like pickleball, which has a lot of lateral movement, I'm going to make sure I train lateral movement in what we're doing
Yeah. Absolutely.
because they're going to
Absolutely.
need that, or else
Yep.
guess what? That's where they're going to get hurt.
Yep.
Uh, I have had more people, and usually it's the guy who's 45 years old, takes their kids out for a bowling party
Mm.
and they bowl the first 10 frames no problem, and then they start getting cocky, and halfway
Uh-huh.
through the second round they throw their back out.
Yep.
That glute med, because they're shifting all their weight to
It's
one
like,
side.
enough. I give
E-
up.
exactly, it's
I'm
like, I
done.
got you, I got you, I got you, screw you, you're done, okay, you're
Do
stopping now. And that's what we see. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, if you're going to do that, guess what, I have to train that. So
Yeah.
again, it
Yep.
that counterbalance is wonderful, but also training for that functional activity. Because
Mhm.
again, if they're a gardener, they are going to be forward flexing, but guess what? They're going to need to be able to squat. They're going to be
Yeah.
digging, pulling weeds. They're going to be
Yep.
at weird angles.
Yeah.
And we all would love to say that we are perfectly square and straight on every time we squat and we bend over.
Never.
No, we
Doesn't
rotate, we move
happen.
through our hips, we're bending over, we're lifting up. So I want to make sure they do all of that. So again,
And
those are the things I sort of focus in on.
one of the things that I want to remind people who are from the Pilates world about is the reformer is fantastic and the apparatus is fantastic. But I am really clear, especially with my older clients, that I make sure I always do a standing warm up and I do a standing cool down. And
Mhm.
it can be as simple as a standing rotation. We'll do some squats. We'll maybe add a little bit of arm work. I'll do some lunges. Sometimes I'll do some clock lunges. I'll even put like a little moon box and have them just step up and over that. And this
Mhm.
is really because those are basic functional activities. And as much as I would love to believe that Pilates will do everything for you, what I really learned sometimes the hard way is that you really get good at exactly what you train. I've said this a lot on this program, but it's true.
Yep.
Like if I'm lying down doing footwork, I get good at lying down doing footwork. Some of that translates into a standing squat, some of it does not.
Yeah.
So again, just really being reminding people that if their client is going to be like, I love your lifting stuff up and moving it over here. If your client's going to be doing those kind of ordinary things, maybe say, okay, take all those props on that side of the room and move them over to the reformer. I'm just,
Yep.
thinking of things in my
No,
environment,
absolutely.
so that they're bending, and plus you get to look at them and see how they're doing that.
Yeah.
Right, it's also it's what I call an assessor size because I can look and go, "Wow, they always lunge with their right leg. They always put that right leg first. They always reach with their right hand first. They never do their left side. The hips drop down." Right, then I can also see what patterns show up when they're unconscious and when they're doing ordinary daily activities.
And when they get fatigued,
Yes, exactly.
because I mean, you and I probably seen this that 1,000 times. They start out really good, and then by
Yeah,
the 20th repetition or whatever,
they're a
they start
mess.
dropping things with one hand, they start lifting things up with one side only,
Yep.
and you can
They stop bending
see.
their knees. They lean there. They
Right.
fold their hips. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can see the bad habits start popping up when they do get tired. So that's
Yeah.
another great way to do that, looking through the exercise and saying, "Oh, okay." And the more they do it, obviously it's our job to keep them focused and to keep, cueing them to make sure they're doing it properly. But it is a great way for us to see where their weaknesses are, and
When they
especially
break
once they get
down.
tired, when they break
Yeah.
down, because
Yeah.
they can do 10 squats and they look balanced on each side, but what about on number 20? Suddenly their
Right.
weight is shifting to one side and they're, compensating in a way that you didn't expect. And now, okay, something's
Mhm.
going on here.
Yep.
Okay, is that because of pain? Is it because of exhaustion? Is it because of muscular imbalance? Who knows? but this is what I see. So now we have to address that.
Yeah, exactly. So looking at, all right, just thinking about what their goals are, thinking about what they're trying to do, keeping them
Yep.
moving, looking at like keeping them moving for their sport and keeping them moving for the compensations from their sport, if you will, like cross training. And then also like what are their just, and then training them for daily activities, right? And making
Yep.
sure that you maintain some balance, balance meaning not balanced muscular development, but balance, like they can actually remain their
Yep.
balance. Lateral movement. I love that you always include lateral movement because that is where
Lots.
people really break down. And that is what can cause both injuries
Yep.
and both like falling injuries and also just injuries from the body not being able to tolerate those kind of movements. So
Hmm.
again, what do they need to do? How do they need to do it?
Yeah. Something else to keep in mind when you have the exercises and you know what you want to do is look at the repetition and sets.
Yeah.
And I bring that up a lot because in the fitness mindset, years and years and years and years and years and years and years ago, someone has said that 3 to 5 reps builds power, and 8 to 12 repetitions build hypertrophy, and 12 to 15 build endurance. And there's nothing magical between rep number 11 and 12. There's nothing, magical about those repetitions. It's how much weight you can lift for a certain period of time. And when you look at repetition range, hypertrophy has been shown in doing repetitions upwards of 40 repetitions. So
Yeah.
you can still build strength as well as endurance by doing higher repetitions. So it doesn't have to be lower reps. So we want to look at, moderating the intensity to make sure that they're not necessarily straining too much, and doing too few repetitions, but also going maybe for higher repetitions because let's face it, we do all lose a little bit of endurance as we get older, oftentimes. So I like to add in a little bit more repetition range, going up to 20 reps, for instance. And I find that that really does help build that endurance because no one wants to come here and spend as much money as they do hiring me and spend half the time on the cardio equipment.
Right. And endurance isn't just cardio. I mean, cardio is a key way to do that for sure.
Right.
So that's a great way to do that. But I'm thinking of I mean, I'm thinking of my clients who again can do a little bit of squatting, but they can't do much, right? They can get up and down from the floor a couple of times, and then they really just don't have the strength to
Yeah.
do it. Or they can lift up, they can lift up one grocery bag and bring it inside, but by the second and third, they're wearing out. So again, I know
Yep.
we're getting down to like very, very basic functional pieces too, but I would rather have them take a lighter weight and be able to do 20 reps with it and kind of be able to actually chat through that and
Yep.
really know like, okay, that's good. They're getting some work, but they can do that again and again and again because there's many things we do again and again and again. I mean,
Yep.
lunging for sure, lifting stuff up, just even standing in front of your sink and doing dishes and chopping vegetables and leaning over your stove, right? These are all things we do for extended periods of time.
Yep.
Cleaning, whatever you do. Again, I'm taking a very female housewife oriented approach here,
No, no, no.
but all those things are kind of ordinary things that we do, and we need to have the endurance to do them.
And that's just it. We need to have that. Now, something that I'm going to challenge people with, and hopefully I'll explain this in a clear, concise way. If you have a certain amount of time for your exercises, and when clients come to see me, we've got an hour. Now we take flexibility and we put it at the end. We take warm up at the beginning. We do some release work. We do some rehab. That usually leaves me about a half an hour of really focused time that we're focusing on general fitness exercise wise. Now, if I wanted to do 3 sets per exercise, let's say I wanted to do squats, for instance, and we were going to do 3 sets of squats. Okay, that to me, that gets boring doing 3 sets and it takes up quite a bit of time. So I may
Mhm.
only get a certain number of sets in that 30 minutes. And usually it's about 15 to 20, depending on how much rest I'm giving the client. So what I'm going to do is add in variety with each exercise. So I may take a
Exactly.
squat and
Yep.
do a set of regular squats. Then I'm
Yep.
going to do a step out squat where they step to the
Yep.
side, squat, and come back. Step out to the side, squat, and come back. Maybe I'll do it
Yep.
with a band. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll have them step out to the side, pick something up, and come back to the center, and then step out to the other
Yep.
side and put it down. Maybe I'll have them open up 90 degrees and squat and come back to the center. These are all ways that I did the same exercise. They're still squats. But now I've maybe had them do 5 different exercises, which is
Mhm.
working in a three-dimensional movement. We've
Mhm.
worked in all these different planes of motion, but we've done the same exercise. So I've still gotten 5 sets of squats in, but I've gotten so much more benefit out of that same number of sets.
Right, and plus, so, the other thing about repetition and variety is that, it keeps the nervous system alert and paying attention,
Mhm.
right?
Good
If you're
point.
doing the same thing for 100 reps, like, you're not paying attention by the last set of
You're right.
20. You're just
Yep.
not. And one of the things that's wonderful about, the Pilates environment is I think about a squat. All right, so you've got double leg pumps on the chair, that's a squat. You've got
Mhm.
footwork on the reformer, that's a squat. You've got knee stretch, that's a squat. You've got right, there's like 17 different ways to do the same move, and then even within that, there's
Mhm.
different foot positions and that kind of thing. So
Yep.
that is that way to keep the nervous system alert and alive, to train the body to do the same basic idea with many different variations, because it's not going to happen in a perfectly parallel position every time.
Mhm.
And those are just, again, that way to take something and try it this way, and then try it this way, and then try it this way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the muscles themselves are also working in so many different ways, but that's more
Yeah.
realistic. That's more real life
Yeah.
because,
Exactly.
I am going to go to Home Depot and I am going to pick this up and I'm going to have to put it down and put it over here. And when I get to my yard, I'm going to have to take it out of the truck and I'm going to have to lift it up and put it in the wheelbarrow. I'm going to have to carry it on one shoulder so I'm offset and I'm going to have to put it down and all of this sort of thing. So it's movement in so
Hmm.
many various ways. So if I can create, and let's just say a lunge, you can do a clock lunge, a walking lunge, a rear lunge, a side lunge. They're all lunges. They're all basically
Yeah.
very similar.
Yeah.
But by hitting all of them, you're going to affect a greater change to the body. And you don't
Hmm.
need to do 3 sets because, again, we're not bodybuilders here. It's not like we need, that high volume of a single exercise to create, a certain type of look to the muscle. We want to create function. We want to create strength in real life. And that's one way that we can do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the fun part too, right? Because that keeps the clients alert, keeps you alert. They feel like they're getting something out of it. And they're getting not just the strength, but they're also getting that ability to move in a variety of different ways, right? Because,
Mhm.
to your point, if I've got a small dog, for example, who likes to run under my feet, chances are good I'm going to be doing lunges in strange directions,
Oh,
right? To
yeah.
not step on the dog. I'm like, oh, got to go to the right. Oh, got to go to the left. Oh, got to step back, right? All those things are going to be part of it. And training that
Yep.
and training the neuromyofascial system to accommodate that is a wonderful way to keep things moving and keep things from getting injured and from getting too much stress, to your point of resiliency.
Yeah. The last thing I want to sort of bring up is what do they do after the workout? That active
Hmm.
recovery time. Be
Recovery.
because for me, for instance, I find I can do cardio pretty much 5 days a week with no problems. My body snaps back pretty quickly. I'm not training to that 90% of my, VO2 max. I don't do that stuff anymore, but I'm training at a high enough heart rate that I feel I get a good sweat going. I'm training my heart, I'm training my muscles for the mitochondria tissue to maximize that, and it makes me feel good. Good for my heart. But when it comes to strength training, I find that 2 times a week is good, and my body can snap back pretty quickly. So for me, I'm going to limit the amount of weight training that I'm going to do because I don't want to overstrain myself. I can train hard for those 2 days, but I have enough time in between where I'm just doing my cardiovascular, or I'm gonna do some release work, or I'm gonna do some stretching, mobility work, where I can enhance what the strength training is gonna do, but also keep my body moving and create that, create that environment for active recovery.
I was just working with a client, and they go for like about a 4 mile walk every morning, a fast 4 mile walk. Like that's their morning routine. And they were saying they've been doing it for about 3 weeks, and they were feeling really fatigued in their calves and their legs for
Mhm.
the rest of the day. And they would recover overnight, but it was like they kept hoping that they could tolerate that a little bit better, right? And that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're talking about is they want to do this. but they don't quite seem to have the resiliency for it. It was interesting because she'd come home and she'd do some stretches. She'd get on the reformer, do some footwork, stretch out her calves,
Mhm.
and stretch some things and do some rolling and some massage work. Well, that was helpful. But when I looked at her and we did some assessments, it was like, okay, that's good. But the challenge is actually you don't have the strength.
Yeah.
Like you got to do the release work because that'll be really helpful. But I realized like her hips were not strong enough. Like her abductors and adductors were not really strong enough to take that amount of fast work and to really keep the force from just sort of falling down into the feet, if you will, right? That's a sort of a funny
Mhm.
example. And so it's like, okay, well, we got to work on strength. We got to get you stronger in these areas so that you can then tolerate that and your body will not be, will not break down as quickly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
one other little story. I taught at a university for a little while, a dance kinesiology class with a good friend of mine, and we were both in our 40s at the time. And the students were, 18 to 25, 26. And I remember this one comment where one of them was like, "Man, I did something the other day. I did a lot of whatever. I was in class. It was a really hard class. And it took me like 3 days to recover." And they were stunned, like, oh my God. And there was a gal in the class who was 26. She's the oldest person in class. And she said, "Well, I'm 26. And you have no idea how much longer it takes to recover when you're 26." And my friend Julie and I, who are in our 40s, and we both have a long dance career, looked at her and went, mm-hmm, this does
Just you
not get
wait.
better. Just you wait. Sometimes you just don't really quite recover, right? Something is always a little glitchy or a little funky, or you've got to just accommodate for that tightness in your calf or whatever it is. And then it becomes about management. And
Yeah.
some of that is myofascial release, and maybe it's getting a massage regularly, maybe it's sauna or a hot tub. Like all those things are really important as we age, and giving yourself time to recover is really critical.
Yeah. I'm reminded of that at the moment. I started training a little harder than I had in a while, and a little bit of patellofemoral syndrome creeped up. A little bit of tendonitis in my knee, and I had it years and years ago, and I know exactly what it feels like. And as soon as it came back, I was like, "Oh no, oh, this is gonna stink for a while." But you know what? Part of resiliency is also listening to your body,
Yes, absolutely.
because when I first did it, I thought, "Oh, this will be fine tomorrow."
Uh-huh.
And I did a little foam roller. I figured, okay, maybe my IT band's gotten a little tight on that side. Maybe there's a little bit of fascial adhesion between the IT band and the quad. So doing some release work. Okay, tomorrow I'll feel much better. Nah, and it didn't work. Okay, so I did some flexibility. Okay, oh, that's really tight. Okay, yeah, I haven't been focusing on that as much. So I'm trying to listen to my body. Yesterday, it was like, okay, it's bothering me enough. Let's break out the ice pack. Okay, let's ice
Mhm.
down the tendon a little bit.
Mhm.
Let's listen to the body, and also
Mhm.
maybe not do some cardio for a couple of days. Let's not do lower body for a week or two. Let's give my body a chance to rest and recover and listen to it, rather than when I was 19, 20, where you just constantly pushed through everything, because my
Yeah,
brain
because
still
you
wants
would
to do
because
that.
you would mostly recover. And I mean, at that point, like, you could
You do
recover
anything.
fairly quickly, mostly, right?
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, exactly. So it's one of the things that I think is hard, at least I find it psychologically hard, is, when you have an injury, when something's bothering you, there's, I think, two ways the brain can take that. One of it is, oh, that's interesting information. Maybe I need to explore why that's happening. So, in your case,
Mhm.
is it flexibility? Is it strength? Do I need more release work? Is it the IT band? Is it the quadricep? Like, what's
Yep.
what's causing that? Right. So, a little bit of research is critical, and that's data. And then you say, okay, well, oh look, oh, my IT band's a whole lot tighter. I better do a little work on that. And so, it's data that gives you information that you can then work on to get
Yep.
back to where you were. Right.
Yep.
That's the best mindset, not always the one we follow. Mindset number 2 is, "Oh my god, my knee hurts. I'm never gonna walk again. I better stop doing anything for a while."
Yep.
I'm not exaggerating, right? I know a lot of clients where that is where they go. Like your guy who fell down the stairs, right? Who fell up the
Yep.
stairs. He fell up once and that was like, "I'm done." And and
And it
and and really,
yeah.
yeah, and that's not healthy, right? We've got to like take
Nope.
that moment and go, okay, so this is information. my calves are a little bit tight, or my left knee is a little bit tight after I do this. I did it for 40 miles. Let's say I'm biking. Okay, maybe I can do 15. 15 I can do without that. Okay, let's do 15 for a couple of weeks and then
Yep.
build it up to 20. So some of it is just is being rational about it, which is not always something that's easy. So,
No. A and it's also reminding ourselves sometimes that we are all aging. Our
yes,
bodies are all getting a little older,
even you
and
young
much
folks out
like
there.
even you young folks, and much like the frog that is in the hot water that, gets turned up 1 degree at a time until eventually it's cooked. Well, guess what? Eventually, your body is going to hit a wall, and eventually you're not going to necessarily recover as quickly as you did yesterday or last
Mhm.
week, last month, last year, 10 years ago. And you have to be able to listen to your body, and you have
Yeah,
to make changes.
yeah.
And it's okay to make those changes. It's okay to listen to your body and say, you know what? I had to do this personally. I can't do bench press. Okay. I've got a pretty good sized chest. I've injured both shoulders over the years. Bench press has never been a strong suit for me. It's always something I've tried to do. And guess what? My shoulders don't like it. So, guess what? About 3 or 4 years ago, I just said, I don't have to do it. There is nothing
Mhm.
making me do this exercise. I can train pressing motions with cables, with bands, with all sorts of other things. Even push ups didn't hurt, but doing it with barbell hurt. So, guess what? I made an adjustment. And if you listen to your body or listen to your clients' bodies after they work out with you, and suddenly they come back and say, that last workout, this happened or that happened. Like you said, that's just information. Take that information in. Is there something you need to modify? Is there something that should change? Then you treat them like a science experiment to a certain degree. You make a modification
And you
and you
figure out
try
what's
that.
gonna be helpful. That's right.
Yeah,
And what
exactly.
what are the little point of that? Because I kind of use the rational and then the like, I'm going to give up. There's the other
The
version. There's
irrational.
actually three, which is the well, whatever. What this is the end of my life. Then the other one is, oh, I'm not going to think about this too much. It'll go away eventually.
Yeah.
So you don't pay attention to your body and you don't make those little accommodations. And I'm thinking of another client who was having kind of some foot pain, some plantar fasciitis, basically, like in October, coming and going, not too bad, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It was not fine. By
Yeah.
January, they're like, I can't walk on this foot comfortably. And this is one of those things where, again, when something happens, pay attention. Again, don't
Mhm.
pay so much attention you stop doing anything. But that's when you become a detective, a body detective. Why is this happening? What's going on? In her case, she was wearing the same shoes for the last 10 years, right? She had three
Uh-huh.
pairs of tennis shoes she's had forever. She's a very high
Mhm.
arch, and that wasn't working. Like that wasn't working. So it's like, okay, go get some new shoes, go do this, go do that, and things have gotten better. But that's the other thing is like pay attention. If something
Yes.
isn't getting better, like Brian said, okay, bench press, it's out. Like it doesn't seem to work for me, it's out. There's an exercise on the reformer, stomach massage, round back stomach massage, which every time I used to do it as a young dancer person, it would throw my SI joint out every single time. I would stand up. I couldn't move very well. It was not it. That was not my exercise. No matter what I did, no matter how much it wasn't going to happen. And that's important to know. Like you don't have to do everything. That was not a critical
Exactly.
exercise for me in any way. Bench
Yep.
press is not critical for you to do the
Nope.
functions you need to function.
And that's just it. Not every exercise is for every client. And that is
Mhm.
something that I think the younger trainer, the younger Pilates instructor really needs to understand is it does come down to safe exercise selection for the client in front of you. Not
Yeah.
everyone's going to be able to do the same thing.
No.
And you have to listen to the body that's in front of you, including your own.
Yes, exactly.
And that's not easy. I speak from a
Oh,
lot of experience that,
me
that
too.
this the last week and a half, it's like, "What's going on? Why are you hurting me? You were fine."
Uh-huh.
It's like,
Exactly.
"Okay." I picked things up. I started doing too much. I was like, "Oh, my body's talking to me." Okay. I'm respecting that now. We're going to back it off or we're going to calm things down. And I think finding a happy balance, and we all have clients like this, the ones that it's the end of the world. And, when they've had pain before, like PTSD, all of a sudden they get this little bitty, something. And oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. I'm never going to be able to walk again.
Right.
Everything doom and gloom, to the
Yep.
other side of things
I'm
where,
fine.
oh, I'm fine.
I'm
No,
fine. Yeah,
stoic.
my
I'm
back
fine.
always hurts. I'm fine.
Yep. We just push through. We'll be fine. There needs to be a happy medium. You need to be able to listen to the body and be able to say, okay, what can it do? What can't it do? What's bothering it?
Mhm.
And okay, let's make some modifications.
How does it
And
feel
if,
today?
right.
Right. Today, my legs are really tired or whatever. I'm going to do some upper body work, or I'm going to
Right.
not do those squats I've been doing for the last 3 weeks. Right. Okay. But give it a rest.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Well, I think we covered resiliency pretty well here.
Hopefully you got some tidbits out of this. And again, even those of you who are not older, whatever that means to you, this is key for all of your clients. Like even
Yeah.
when you're at that point in life, when you're in your 20s or your 30s, I'm thinking about, being a dancer in my 20s, when you are pushing a lot and you're really trying to move ahead and get stronger and get more flexible and get your skill level up. Even when
Yep.
you're at that point, all these lessons still apply in terms of listen to your body. How do I accommodate? If this is the move I have to do, what is my best way to do that? Right. And,
Hmm.
and those are really critical things that I think can also help you to live longer, to be able to do your sport longer, to be able to be active longer, even if you're not older.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I say, as we grow, hopefully we grow smarter at the same time.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
So
Hopefully. I'm
important to
just
remember.
discovering that. So
Yeah.
hopefully. Hopefully. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening in again to Moving Conversations. As always, you can reach us at movingconvos@gmail.com. Like and subscribe, hit all those buttons. Check us out on YouTube where you can actually watch us talk to each other instead of just listening to us. If you choose to do that, it gives you another option, especially for those of us, or those of our, listeners who are overseas who rely on closed captioning. This is an opportunity for them to actually see us and experience it on a different level. So for Nora St. John, I'm Brian Ritchie. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.